Republicans in California look poised to flip a third congressional seat from blue to red. And why has the counting taken so long? And President Trump just pardoned General Michael Flynn after swimming in legal purgatory for the last 4 years. But first, in California. 3.5 weeks after the election, it appears that the Republicans have won another House seat. David Vallejo looks certain to take the 21st district, unseating Democrat incumbent TJ Cox, who in turn had unseated Vallejo in 2018. This seat could be the third seat to flip from blue to red, back to red, I should say, in California, and with a fourth one likely. Here to talk to us tonight about how things look in sunny California is Peter Kuo. He's the vice chair of the California Republican Party, and Craig Keshishian. He's the senior advisor at InsiderAdvantage, which is a polling and political consulting firm. Gentlemen, welcome.
It's great to be on. Thank you, Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi. So, Craig, I'll start with you. You've been a veteran of oh so many elections. Why is it taking so long in California? There's still one seat yet to be determined, and right?
Right. I think we have an edge there on that particular district as well. But you can thank Jerry Brown and the Democratic Assembly and Senate for ballot harvesting rule they were able to slip into place for these extraordinarily long gestation times for votes to be counted. This happened again in 2018. That was the first election where ballot harvesting was considered to be legal in the state of California, and our friends across the aisle certainly exploited that ruling, and consequently Republicans that were ahead on election day, even ahead 2 or 3 days after election day, lost the congressional seats and their gambits because of an influx of unexpected votes thanks to the harvesting law that the Democrats passed. We see that again in this cycle too. It shouldn't take 3 weeks to count a single congressional district. It should not take that long.
And Peter, it seems like, so it's taking a long time to count. And in 2018, that was the first major election with the ballot harvesting rule in place. Were there concerns that there were fraud or untoward things going on at that time? Because there were a few seats that just flipped once the rush of mail-ins came in and other ballots.
Correct. We lost 7 seats back in 2018, and we're poised to take back 4 seats this election, and we're very excited about it. Of course, we already know about Michelle Steele's victory, and we have Young Kim's victory. And unlike 2018, there are finite numbers of ballots to be counted left, and statistically, we are ahead of our opponents. So we are confident that we will win all 4 seats back this in 2020.
So, and since ballot harvesting in California is legal, it's illegal in some states, but it's legal in California now. Are the GOP also engaging in that?
This year, in 2020, we did engage in ballot harvesting. We encourage our voters, the Republican voters, to drop off their ballot at churches, at synagogues, at even some community places that we have set up ballot boxes that we encourage our voters to bring their votes. In fact, they brought a suit to us, but we show them their own law they passed in 2018 and say, hey, we could do this. This is your own law. And we actually was allowed to do that. And we collected almost 6,000 ballots at one church in one weekend. So that was a very, very great ballot harvesting for us.
So do you think that the two parties are sort of on par in those endeavors?
Yes. However, I think this year in particular, many UCs and CSU were closed. They were not able to utilize the students to go door to door to collect ballots. So, what Republicans did was set up ballot boxes that people can drop off their ballots in various locations that we have set up. So it was very successful.
So did the Republican Party see it favorably now? I guess they were against it at the time when the Democrats were trying to pass it. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's the rule of the game is that they passed. So we dropped the ball in 2018, and we wanted to make sure that 2020 we worked just as hard as a Democrat did in 2018. So we were successful this time.
I see. And Craig, yeah, go ahead. I want to get your thoughts since you've been at this game since the Reagan era.
True, as a very young man. And Peter did a wonderful job, by the way. And the California State GOP gets credit for I shouldn't say taking advantage of ballot harvesting. I should say, rather, exploiting the law ethically and legally. And frankly, I'm not a big fan of ballot harvesting in any scenario. I'm also not a fan of basically mail-in voting with ballots mailed to every person in the state for obvious reasons. I have friends who receive ballots from multiple states. I have friends who receive ballots for their dead parents. I have friends who receive ballots for deceased family members. All of those could have been filled out legally and posted. So, and that's just me in isolation. So can you imagine how that pattern must take place across the state? I am assured that there are many illegal votes that were casted, maybe not enough to make a difference, but it violates, in my view, the one person, one vote ethic that this country has upheld since its founding. And it also contributes to these extraordinarily and necessarily long voting periods. There shouldn't be a 3-week gestation period between the time somebody casts a ballot and a result is handed down. In fact, California, Peter, you know well, since you're vice chair, what's the certification deadline? Somewhere in December, close to Christmas. That's
14th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Something inane like that. So this just invites all kinds of shenanigans and tricks and other ancillary measures, which this state certainly does not need. In terms of flipping those, clawing them back, we had very strong candidates, and you can thank Peter and Kevin McCarthy and others for that. The candidates that ran in these districts, Cindy, were articulate, they were strong, they had deep business background, they understood the issues that confront California, not only as immigrant entrepreneurs, but also as wives and mothers and educators, and they innately knew the problems that the state faced. So that's the reason why we prevailed. Also, in the 25th, Mike Garcia is a wonderful candidate. Thank God he's going to be in office. But here we have a warrior who got in the Naval Academy on his own merits. He's a Hispanic gentleman, Hispanic American gentleman. So we can demonstrate with ease that the Republican Party is one big open tent, open to all. And when we get good candidates like this, we prevail. We win elections, and we will win more elections like this because, as Peter also knows, our good friend across the aisle, Katie Porter, came very close. I mean, Greg Rapp ran a very strong campaign right here in Orange County. He was, 2 points behind her in a district that is R+1. So we recruit somebody spectacular this next cycle around. She's vulnerable. That's seat number 5. And then I must also say that down in the 49th, Brian Marriott, my good friend Brian Marriott, ran a strong campaign. That could be clawed back. So our words of warning, Democrats, you better shape up and trend more to the center unless you want to start losing more. That's my message. And the propositions, one last point, this is important. The statewide propositions that I thought would have...
Hey, wait, let's hold off on that for a moment. I want to get to the propositions, but I want to get Peter's thoughts on what you think 2022 will look like. Do you have a crop of, promising looking Republicans coming up?
We're very confident. Again, mark my words, we will take back the House in 2022.
How many seats do you think California can deliver?
We can deliver 4 more seats. Keep the ones that we have, and then we'll deliver 4 more seats in 2022 for the House.
And do you think there's prospects for California to lean back more right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Schwarzenegger was...
It's already leaning red. I really felt that with the crazy policies that our government has been set up, especially with assemblies, with their attempt trying to pass the affirmative action, trying to passed AB5, which is the not allowing Uber and Lyft driver to make a living. And plus this pandemic shutdowns, their policy has been awful. And it's going to kill so many small businesses here in California. So I think people are waking up. They're realizing the Republicans' policies are better for California. So they are leaning. And we can see that with the proposition that we passed in 2020. So again, the ones that we opposed did not pass. So that was a great thing for the state of California.
Yeah, it looks like with the props that passed and didn't pass, there is definitely a more, libertarian right-wing bent to it, which I was kind of surprised to see. Craig, had some thoughts about that.
Thank you. Indeed, your instincts are correct. California has always harbored a libertarian streak, and I have to say that it really showed its color this election cycle by defeating Prop 15, which was the split roll proposition to eradicate Prop 13 benefits for small businessmen and women who own their own stores. They were kind of slick about it. They were trying to posture this as a take back of large corporations like Disney and Chevron who own properties. But really, this affected everybody, every small business person who owned their own building over $3 million in value. And I defy you to find a commercial building anywhere on the West Side or in the Bay Area or in Silicon Valley that's worth less than $3 million. It just affects a lot of small business people. So we saw a rallying cry of entrepreneurs and sensible people who didn't want to see their taxes boosted up again in the time of COVID. We also saw people respond to the issue of losing independent contractor status. This gives Californians a second bite of the apple to make a little more money to pay off their exorbitant tax bill that Gavin Newsom and the Democrats delivered to your doorstep every day here. So we defeated that, and we also defeated the anti-affirmative action bill that was on the ballot. And in fact, a large cross-section of Latino Americans and Asian Americans, Armenian Americans voted against that too, because everyone believes that merit should count, and that is an important aspect of libertarian thinking too. So Peter's right. California is on I should say more of a libertarian conservative trend line, and there is no reason why we can't claw back more congressional seats, and certainly claw back more seats in the state assembly and state senate, which is really a shame. That should be our next big focus, to be blunt, because the state has basically a super majority in all things. They can pass willy-nilly what they want, like ballot harvesting.
And Peter, do you want to jump in there on more about the props?
Yeah, for me, the most important one that we fought really, really hard for, the entire Chinese Asian American communities fought really, really hard against Prop 16. Again, what they're trying to do is using skin color to determine one's future, not just in admission to college. They attempted and tried to use it in hiring, in government contracting and government hiring. So that to us is unacceptable, just because we are a country built on merit, not because if you are a certain skin color, you get to have that privileges. So I'm really, really glad that the state of California, the people of the state of California did not pass 16. Not only that, it shows out one thing: money doesn't always mean that victory. Our opponents spend 10 times more money than we have raised, and again they couldn't even pass their affirmative action, because people realize if this thing get passed, it will be detriment to our next generation's future. So I'm really excited that, especially about Prop 16, that did not pass, and of course 15 about tax increases. Again, Republican, what we really propose is that small government and low taxes. So Prop 15 actually did that, helping all the small business. Again, it doesn't matter if it's small or large, all the businesses to keep their taxes low, so that as consumers you don't have to pay exorbitant amount of price for the goods of your service.
Right, and you mentioned the amount of money being spent. There was some record set, right, in California this year.
Yeah, Prop 22, which is the independent contractor. That one, it was a record amount of money spent by Uber and Lyft, and I'm glad that they prevailed. But we have to make sure it doesn't come back. And again, Craig is right. We need to make sure that they don't continue to have that super majority. And we lost 2 state senate seats this year, but we're hoping to gain more to get more back. And our goal is in 2022 to break the supermajority of the state of California, because this one-party rule is not good for the people of California.
All right, I think that's all we've got time for today. I want to thank you both so much for joining us, and I'd love to have you back.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
All right, and coming up after the break, General Michael Flynn's pardon. What does it mean? But first, here's America Q&A.
Not really.
No.
The problem is the parent companies. They have an agenda, they have stakeholders and stockholders that they're responding to, and it's all about the dollar bill. If that were out of the equation, news would be a beautiful thing again. In fact, we would have newspapers again. I do believe if journalists were allowed to do the job that they really want to do.
No.
Some of it.
No. I mean, like I said, my degree's in journalism. I have not trusted the media way back during the McCain-Palin years, where they didn't like Sarah Palin, so they'd put a picture of her like with one eye closed, mouth open, and the people that don't know any better are like, I don't like her. You know, the media can change how people who don't do their due diligence feel about something or think about something. And that's what the media, social media, everybody has been doing, trying to get the people that don't do their research to feel about something.
Yeah, I trust the media, sure. The legitimate media, yeah. And CNN and all the good media. I don't trust Fox or AON or Newsmax, any of that crap. But the other ones I trust, yeah.
Depends upon which media. So, but probably more no than yes. The facts aren't always what the facts are that they're telling you is. And it seems like it's more of a commentary anymore than actual news.
President Donald Trump gave Lieutenant General Michael Flynn a full pardon this week, ending a 4-year criminal odyssey for the retired 3-star general. Flynn was Trump's national security advisor in the early days of his administration and, importantly, during the transition period. That's when Flynn spoke to the Russian ambassador to the United States and Flynn's troubles started. In 2017, the FBI interviewed Michael Flynn about that call and subsequently accused the general of lying about what was discussed. Flynn pleaded guilty, but later withdrew his plea, saying he only accepted a plea deal because prosecutors were threatening his son with charges. Joining us tonight is Ivan Pentchoukov. He's Epoch Times senior reporter who's been following the Flynn case for at least 3 years. Ivan, welcome.
Hi, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
So you've been following this case for years now, and President Trump has finally ended it. It's been in gridlock for the last chunk of time. Can you explain where the case was at when Trump gave his pardon?
Yes, Cindy. So the Judge Sullivan, the judge presiding over Flynn's case, was told by the circuit court to move with all due dispatch to resolve the motion brought by the Justice Department to dismiss the case. Usually what happens when prosecutors bring a motion to dismiss, the judge just approves it. In this case, Sullivan decided to bring on a third party to argue against the prosecution as far as whether the case should be dismissed or not. So Flynn's team challenged that with the circuit court. They won the initial round. Then Judge Sullivan actually requested that the full panel of the circuit court review the case. They overturned the previous decision and they sided with the judge, saying that he can go ahead with this process of this adversarial arguments between the third party, the amicus, and the prosecutors. And then once the arguments are done, the judge can decide on whether he'll agree with the motion to dismiss or not approve it. So that all was several months ago. The way the circuit court phrased their order to Sullivan, it seemed as though this would be a matter of days, and there's been just basically no action in the case since, with the exception of maybe a few document and other menial requests from Judge Sullivan. So we've been stuck at this point for several months now.
And really, I mean, a lot of people frame this case as sort of partisan from the beginning. It was kind of the keystone of the Mueller investigation into Russia collusion, which nothing was really found, except there was this conviction here. Can you explain how Flynn's case fits into that puzzle?
Yeah, so I would say the Flynn case was sort of a keystone to the entire Russia investigation brought by Mr. Mueller. It was the second prosecution in out of the whole special counsel investigation, the first being George Papadopoulos. And with the Papadopoulos charges, there wasn't much to say about Russia, with the exception of a few insinuated links between the professor who Papadopoulos spoke to, and Papadopoulos saying that Russians have dirt on Hillary Clinton. Now, the Flynn case, when that came about, was much more substantial for this Russia narrative, because they charged him with lying about the content of his conversations with the Russian ambassador. So since the Mueller investigation was, for one, this large scale investigation / prosecution machine, it was also a media machine, and this really helped build up this narrative that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, something that Mueller ultimately wasn't able to prove or find enough evidence for.
And so Flynn's lawyer is now the very famous Sidney Powell, who's working on allegations of voter fraud in the past election. She came onto the case sort of midway through. What did she bring? What did she bring to the case when she arrived? Yeah, so
Sidney Powell, basically there, you could say two epochs to Flynn's case, which is the first epoch being his previous defense team, where everything went as sort of you would expect it to be, all the way up until his sentencing hearing, which didn't finish with the sentencing. And then at one point, Flynn fired his now former counsel and brought on Sidney Powell, and from then on, this turned into a series of completely sort of unprecedented events as far as high-profile prosecutions go. Powell really turned the table on the prosecutors. Her filings were aggressive. She was asking for a long list of exculpatory evidence that she claimed the Justice Department withheld, and she really forced the disclosure of some really, really significant documents that, showed us how far up this case went. It's through the Flynn case, through under Sidney Powell's representation, that we learned that President Obama and Vice President Biden were talking about the Flynn case during the transition period in January 2017. It's through, I would say, through this. She's triggered this sort of avalanche of disclosures, including once Attorney General Barr appointed an internal investigator who also turned up a whole lot of material to show that there was really not much to this case. I don't think anybody reasonable could argue that this was anything but Flynn being framed by the Obama administration and then Obama administration holdovers. And so, what do you think? What was in President Trump's pardon that he gave General Flynn? Any hints about the significance of it? Well, I think once the one of the more significant things is that, and that we should keep in mind, is that Trump said Flynn isn't the kind of man that needs a pardon. His case was already dismissed by the prosecutors, or they at least they motioned for the dismissal, and the judge didn't go along with that. And Trump also, the press secretary's more detailed statement mentioned that Flynn's case is part of the Obama administration's refusal to accept the outcome of the 2016 election, and that was evidenced actually by Obama and Biden getting involved and talking about this case at the White House and talking about the Logan Act, and I think that's really sort of interesting right now because of everything that's going on with the election. Because people are arguing now that Trump is undermining the peaceful transition of power, but he's not doing any kind of underhanded investigations. He's using lawyers to legitimately challenge the outcome of the election in several states, whereas the Obama administration was doing something much more, I would say, underhanded.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of tweets from Democrats and headlines in the media talking about this is a travesty of justice, it's outrageous. He's obviously a convicted felon, and he's a traitor. That's how it's being painted in some of the media and in Democrat circles. Is that, indicative of this entire narrative that you were just talking about?
Well, yeah. The legacy media was really just a separate but co-equal branch of this whole of the narrative, and I'm not surprised by how they're discussing this case now. What they're not saying is what we learned through the Flynn legal proceedings, and the lead agent on the case was saying that there was nothing much to it, and that he was ready to dismiss it. On January 4, he was ready to file the paperwork to dismiss the case because he found nothing wrong with General Flynn.
That was January 2017, right?
Yeah, January 4, 2017. And he was told, don't do that just yet. So he held off on filing that paperwork. The case wasn't closed. And on January 5, you've got James Comey with Barack Obama and Vice President Biden talking about the Logan Act and
all right. Actually, Ivan, we're out of time.
People on the case.
I'm going to have to wrap up here, but thank you so much for joining us and sharing tonight.